Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of the Big Podcast. Today, I am joined by 15-year NHL veteran, Hockey Night in Canada Studio Analyst, and Calgary Flames color commentator, Hrudey. Kelly, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Julian. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's funny talking just before we started recording. One of my closest family friends who moved out to Calgary, many years ago, actually live just, a few minutes away from where you are. What a small world.
I know, isn't that the truth? And when you were telling me that, because I told you off camera that literally it would take me 1 minute to drive by the Dobiggins house. So it's such an incredible small world. And when you mentioned to me, Julian, that you had been out to Calgary once, it made me really happy, brought a smile across my face to know that you went to the Canadian Rockies and Lake Louise, because Lake Louise is just such a gem, just a beautiful, beautiful place.
100%. My mom, who organized the trip to go visit her, lifelong friend, was like, we have to go see them, but we also have to make a trip out, because who knows if we're ever going to see, the Rockies again. And Lake Louise, incredibly, it's so beautiful, water pristine. My wife wants to go, so now I have another excuse to try to make it out again sometime soon. And
then, Julian, when you go, winter might be a little tough because it's called the Icefields Parkway north of Lake Louise going towards Jasper, and it's been rated one of the 10 most scenic roads in the entire world. It's that beautiful, but in winter, probably not a great idea. It's gorgeous, but the road might not be open and all that. So do yourself a favor. Go in July or August or September. June is beautiful, and likelihood to see maybe a grizzly is a little bit greater on that road, but it can be a rainy month as well, June. So go later. And like I said, it's just a stunningly beautiful drive.
On the advice of you, I will make sure we plan July or August. There we go. Yeah. Now, Happy New Year. Obviously, we're a couple days into the new year. This is going to air in the second week of January.
Right.
It's still applicable to say Happy New Year, but I got to ask you, how long do you continue to say Happy New Year to people?
I think I had like 2 text messages today that I was still getting back. And I'm kind of like you. I'm on the fence. Like, is it still appropriate right now? Have we moved past it? And so most likely starting tomorrow, I think I'll be over it. But nonetheless, if you continue to do it, you're spreading cheer and goodwill, right? So that's a good thing.
Right. They always say like the first time you see people in the New Year's when you say it. But if we're into February and March, like that's a little bit tough to be saying Happy New Year. We're already into the year.
Yeah, no kidding. But, the thing is, we don't see as many people anymore either. So there's that. And so it will be unusual, with the lockdown. Hopefully our lockdown here in Alberta, I think, is going to lessen January 11th. But that's, up in the air. But, we still need to see people. We're social beings, right? And so, I miss not hugging people and being around them and all that. So I'm really looking forward to the day. And hopefully in a few months, if we have this conversation again, we can say, wow, that was a horrible stretch we went through, and it affected everybody, not only physically, and COVID has affected my family. Some of my family members had it, but emotionally, mentally, and financially, it's been a real grind. I'm sure you would agree, Julian.
100%. And I actually want to talk about that today with you, because you've done many pieces for Sportsnet when it comes to talking about mental health. And 2020 was a challenging year for a variety of different reasons. Either people got sick through COVID, were affected by family members, or even the lockdown. It obviously weighs on everybody's mental and physical capacities very differently. But you've talked about the importance of mental health in the past, and you obviously have a personal connection with this. Why is it such an important topic to you?
Okay, so I went through something that I didn't realize was related to mental health in 1992-93 when I was playing for the LA Kings. And something funky was going on in my head in that summer, the summer of 1992, leading up to the training camp and the season. And my brain was just telling me bad things. Like, I can't keep up this level of play. You can't, your career's coming to an end. All these nasty things. But, part of my brain was right in the sense that the average career is only about 3.5 years. So I was entering my 10th year, I think. And, I knew some of those numbers. And so I'm thinking, there's a lot of stress and pressure. And I'm thinking, man, maybe this is the year it all comes crashing down. So I got off to a great start. So did the team. And then around late November, the thoughts just became overwhelming. And I didn't know about the loop back then. Our daughter, Caitlin, who has dealt with mental health issues for a lot of her life, through all our journeys and through therapy and so on, she taught me about the loop and how to try and break that loop. And you have to have the skills to do it. And so I didn't have those skills. I just suffered basically for 2 months. And finally, my coach, Barry Melrose, recognized I needed some help. And so I was able to meet Anthony Robbins. And if you're not familiar with Anthony Robbins, he's an extremely powerful guy. And, frankly, I was able to meet with Tony one-on-one for a few times, and it saved my career because I came out of that ditch that I was in, played another we went to the finals that year, and I played another 5 years. So, and then when we had to go through dealing with what Caitlin was going through with her anxiety and OCD and learning about that and how to parent through that and also how to help your kid and support your child, we've learned so much. And, over the years, the Canadian Mental Health Association, Julian, I'll tell you, they do a wonderful job. Like, I'm the biggest fan, but they will tell you that 1 in 5 Canadians suffers. And I'm here to tell you, I disagree with that number. And now maybe by suffering, they maybe mean to say that it's completely debilitating to somebody. And I would agree with that. But I think all of us, it's either 4 and 5 or 5 and 5. All of us are dealing with something. And it's how we can control it or react to it or talk about it to other people. And Julian, one of the things that I find most heartwarming about this conversation is that, say, 15 years ago, 2 guys like this, we wouldn't have been talking about, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And now we can say it, guys, now we say, I love you all the time to people that we don't really know that well. I think it's just so heartwarming. And going back to that point, like, mental health really affected our family during this pandemic. And I think all of us were affected in some way. I remember the first weekend that the numbers really started to go up. I believe it was March 12th when the NHL canceled games. It was a Thursday. And that weekend, because we didn't have the restrictions in place and you could still see your family and the government didn't know what to do exactly. And so that Sunday, we had all of our kids over and their spouses, our grandson. So there are 9 of us at the house. And that afternoon, I'm watching my wife, Julie, and I'm thinking, she's acting kind of strange. And she's really glued to the television, flipping between all the different news channels. And she seemed kind of off. And my bad, I should have asked her, are you doing okay? And, I didn't. And she woke up at 5:15 on Monday morning and thought she was having a heart attack. And so we ended up taking her to the hospital. But the anxiety of all the pandemic and rising numbers and everything just got the best of her. And now, luckily, her heart checked out just perfectly. She's fine. But she ended up getting a case of shingles because of the worry. So that's my point here in this super long-winded answer. But just ask people how they're doing. And I think when you look in somebody's eyes, you can tell if they're hanging in there or if they need to talk.
I mean, I completely agree, because when you look at, like you said, back in the day when you're going through this in your playing career, guys didn't talk about their feelings. You're 100% right. And nowadays, most athletes, at least the superstar athletes, are paying to have 1, 2, 3 sports therapists because they understand the mental game is just as, if not equally as important to the physical game. So they'll spend money on their physical therapist to eat right. But if your mind isn't right, you cannot perform at such a high level that they need to. And so we're definitely able to have these conversations now. We're definitely able to, look at Bell Let's Talk Day and champion the idea of mental health awareness rather than look at it as a crutch or a weakness the way it was just, maybe even 10 years ago.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you said that, because Caitlin came out with her story in the spring of 2013. And we were all very proud of her, and so how strong she was to share her story. In fact, I think it was on the cover of the National Post. So the National Post did an amazing job, and also Canadian Press did a wonderful job of covering her story and what she's lived with. But I think one of the things that really scared me the most about that, I remember the night before the story was coming out, and I was working a game in St. Louis, and Caitlin was here in Calgary with her mom. And I said, are you sure you want to go through this? And I said, it's not about you sharing your story. I was so afraid of social media, Julian. I thought, how mean people can be, and the haters, and much to my surprise, she has not had one hater. She's only felt support and love. So that's my point to anybody listening or watching this, that, if you're a little bit afraid of that, don't be. You'll be really pleasantly surprised by how much support and love you receive, and people will be very understanding, because in all likelihood, they're going through something.
100%. Now, I want to shift gears. Obviously, this is an important topic, but one of the other things that I absolutely love when it comes to this time of year is the World Junior Championships. As a Canadian, I love this time, and it's really a time, especially nowadays, when we look forward to sporting events or movies to really take our minds off of the regular day-to-day grind. It brings up great, national pride when we look at our young kids and then representing us on a global scale. But this year, the conversation has kind of changed a little bit, where the conversation has come up where we talk about the same countries dominating year after year, the Canadians, the Americans, every once in a while, the Finns and the Swedes, and then the Russians. And they're calling for, do we need a change? Is it time now where we look to sort of change the format, where we don't have teams like Germany or Switzerland or Slovakia getting beaten up? And I've tried to look at it from an outside perspective, and I've looked at it and said, listen, when we include countries like Germany and Slovakia and Switzerland, and we look at the grassroots that they are building in these countries, and we're starting to see guys like Leon Draisaitl, top player. We look at Zdeno Chara, and we look at Yannick Weber, and we look at these guys who are coming in because of the ability to play on these junior stages and in the Olympics and in the World Cups and all of those things. I say, let's continue to champion and build. Let's not retract. Let's not change it because it's getting dry. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think when it comes to people looking, hey, let's stop the domination and let's make it more of an equal playing field?
Well, first of all, I think it's a really important conversation to have, because I think people, you're exactly right. They are divided. There's half that love the tournament, the way in which it's organized, and there are half that say that, I've heard other people saying there's too many teams, and nobody likes to see Germany lose 16-2 in that first game. Having said that, that was a pretty darn good excuse. They had 9 guys out of the lineup with COVID. So I think that was a little bit misleading, because I'm of the mindset that I like the tournament, and I really like allowing other countries in the format, because they're growing their programs. You mentioned 3 of those players from 3 different countries that have been a byproduct of that competition. And now when they come here or wherever the tournament's played, they get a better understanding of what level they need to be at. And I'm a big supporter of, we have to be patient, because this game is really growing globally. And that is really exciting to me. Like, I watched the Germany a couple days ago, and man alive, was I ever impressed. They lost that game. That was the day they were eliminated, but they were so impressive. And I was like, man, this is really exciting, because their skill level individually and team wise has really gone through the roof in, say, the last 10 years. And it's just, I think, from a guy that comes from a hockey background, it's really exciting to know that the world loves our game, and we have to be patient with it. Now, I'll give you another bit of an example. It's kind of like when people, maybe in Canada more so, were, why are we going to the States to have NHL games? Why are we putting 3 teams in California? And I played 10 years in California, and I heard those sorts of things. And I'm thinking, you're not getting the big picture here. This is really good for the game of hockey. And it's really good that hockey got a foothold in California, because now look at it, like it's a huge sport there. And I can tell you, California is now considered a hockey hotbed, and a lot of the junior leagues here in Canada get a lot of their kids from California. The same thing is happening in Texas. And now, from what I understand, talking to people, Tennessee's maybe going to be the next big one, because the people in Tennessee love the Predators and they fall in love with our game. There are no hockey high school programs in Tennessee before the Predators came. Now I heard it's littered with hockey and amateur teams and so on. The same thing. Now, St. Louis is a little bit different because they've had a long and rich hockey history, and a lot of their alumni have chosen to stay there, and they're really huge into developing their programs. But St. Louis is developing a lot of really good hockey players.
Now, and I like to think that this tournament's like a showcase, right? Like, and you said we build the game. Obviously, Gretzky getting traded to the Kings had a major impact on the NHL's development on the West Coast. And so without those type of things from happening, the game doesn't grow. You cannot expand and have more people being able to pick up a sport. Yes, it's an expensive sport to play for the long term, but everybody can get a bucket, can get some skates, and go play some shinny. Maybe not during COVID, but on a regular year, you can go to your local establishment, throw a puck on the ice, find 10 guys who want to shoot around together, and you got yourself a game. 4 hours later, you're icing your feet because you were on there too long outside. But those are the best memories that you can have. And so when we look at tournaments like this and showcases, Canada had 20 first-round picks on their team. Sounds ridiculous, but I mean, that just goes to show you the level in which Canada is pumping out these athletes. Now, you had an opportunity not once but twice to coach the top prospects game back in 2019 and 2002. What was it like being around the young talent? And is coaching something ever you'd like to maybe pursue a little bit more?
I'll answer the second question first. I think for every guy that has ever played in the National Hockey League, there's something about coaching that is intriguing. There's no question about it. But just the coaching life wasn't really for me. And I know what people are going to say. That's the most ridiculous thing in the world, because I was going to say, because you move so often. It's not often that you stay in one city for a great length of time, but I travel my entire life, right? I'm on the road all the time, whether I'm with the Flames or with Hockey Night in Canada. So that almost doesn't make any sense. But to answer your first question, it was invigorating to be around all those guys the 2 times that I've been a part of it. And I remember my first go around was in Saskatoon, and Rick Nash was on my team. And he went on to have a brilliant NHL career. And I remember he was going to try a move in the shootout. And he was a little skeptical. Now players do it all the time, where the stick goes between the legs and, they roof it. And before he tried it, he comes over to me on the bench and he whispers in my ear, "Hey, Kelly, do you think people think I'm a hot dog or a show off if I try it?" And I go, "No, try it." But I thought just how respectful he was. He just didn't want to do something that would shine a light on him for the wrong reasons. And then 2 years ago, I had Kirby Doc on my team. And that was really cool, amongst other really great players. But I just thought that it was a really great experience because, people like to, when you get older, you like to say kids aren't the same anymore and they've changed. And I say garbage to all that. Kids are, if you're a good kid, you're a good kid. It doesn't matter if you're born in the 30s or if you're born in 2005. I just think that notion doesn't carry any weight to me. I think we've raised 3 incredible daughters that have 3 incredible partners. And so I look at kids today and they have the same work ethic. They're, just good, solid kids. And that's what I like to see. When I was around those special kids, what was that, about a year ago or 2 years ago? I can't remember when I did the 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago with Ron McLean. And I was just like, these kids are just really nice people.
Now, I may have to ask you for some personal advice in about, a couple days. I have two young daughters, and we're about to
Yeah.
find out if what we're having for our third child tomorrow, actually.
Oh,
So,
congrats. Holy.
thank you. So, if we end up having the third daughter, I might have to ask you how you survived, the teenage years. I'm far away from it now, but I'm a little bit concerned considering how I see my young daughter at not even 4 putting on full makeup and talking about boyfriends. So I'm in a little bit of trouble, Kelly.
Yeah, an open mind, my friend, and you'll learn so much. I came from a family, wonderful mom and dad, and I had an older brother, but I wasn't around a lot of girls or women, right? So, and then going into the hockey industry, you're only surrounded basically around guys. So it was a really great experience for me to really learn how to interact properly with women and understand, that, we are different in some respects and we think a little bit differently at times. And, so it was really great for me to see the world from a different perspective. The one thing I will jokingly kind of way say, you don't have to worry about the teenage years as much as your wife, because it seems like girls and mothers fight a little bit in those teenage years. And then the good thing I always tell people, when the daughters start to come back around 15, 16, 17, they are just tight with their mom after that. So then you're all good. Once you get through those 2-3 years of the awkwardness, then you're all good.
Perfect. All right. I will put that in the back of the mind to remember at that time. Now, speaking of being a young kid, obviously, you're from Edmonton. You're playing street hockey with your buddies.
Yeah.
How did the observation from a friend's dad lead you to becoming a goalie?
Wow. You've done your research, my friend. I like it. So it was the summer of when I was turning 12. And so I guess 73. And I was going to start to play ice hockey with my friends because I was playing street hockey and road hockey and all that, but I'd never been on an organized team. And finally that summer when my mom and dad said, yeah, you can play, my buddy and I, Jeff Marshall, were just playing ball hockey in his driveway, and we were having that discussion. And I was undecided. I didn't know what position I wanted to play. And then Mr. Marshall said something to me like, Kelly, I don't want to influence you too greatly, but whenever I watch all you guys play ball hockey, when you're in the net, you stop the ball way more often than everybody else. It was that simple, Julian. I was like, interesting. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a whirl. And then I fell in love with it the first day I ever practiced. And even though I was lousy because I was 12 years old and all the kids had already played for a few years, that didn't discourage me. That came later, but at that point, that wasn't a problem. I just fell in love with the position because it's so unique and every day is different. Every day is a new challenge. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Mental toughness is huge, especially growing up as a teenager, and to start something at and what would be considered a much older age than the norm for you to, start so late and still have a fantastic professional career is something really to be proud of, because we see hockey players now putting their kids on skates at 1, maybe 18 months. Like as soon as they can walk, they're on a pair of skates. And so, at 12 years old, I can only imagine, the pressure of not only just playing hockey, but also being the mental guy who straps on pads and lets people fire pucks at them from close distances.
Yeah. So there's a 2-part answer there again. The mental toughness, I had no idea I was learning that skill when I was playing hockey at a young age, right? I just thought I was trying to play goal and stop pucks at 12, 15, 16 years old. I had no idea for those 5 years or so that I was building some sort of mental toughness. That was an accident, really. But the skating part, I must admit, my mom and dad had a skating rink in our backyard. So as a young kid, I believe I was about 3 or 4 when I started skating. Now, I wasn't a very good skater, and I quit for a couple of years. And that's why when I was 11, when I went to my mom and dad to ask if I could play organized hockey, they said no, because you had to learn how to skate again for a year. Right. So the entire year when I was 11 and 12, then I learned how to properly skate, at least decent. And but I wrestle with that too. Listen, we have a grandson. He's going to be 3 here in about a month.
Wow.
And now COVID's different, and with the lockdown, because we can't see him, right? So we can't.
Right.
But I would have wrestled with the fact that at what age do I start to take my grandson skating again? Because I'd like to do that, and my wife and I have talked about it. So I don't know what this whole thing is going to look like here, and I don't know if in the next couple months if we're going to have a chance to do some outdoor skating somewhere. But certainly next year, that will be top of our agenda, at least mine, and try and teach our little Maverick how to skate. And then in a couple, 3 more years, because he's going to be a brother to another grandson, so we'll have that opportunity again in a couple, 3, 4 years.
Congratulations. That's always an exciting time, I'm sure.
Beautiful. We love it.
Now, you play your hockey, you play for Medicine Hat, then you end up getting drafted in 1980 by the New York Islanders. Yeah. You played for 2 other teams, as we talked about, on the West Coast, in the LA Kings and the San Jose Sharks. Now, you obviously have great memories of each of those 3 stops for many different reasons, right? Yeah. From a fan's perspective, the obvious ones that stand out to me being a fan of yours is obviously you got to start with the 87 Easter epic, the 92-93 Cup Finals, which I'm going to come back and talk to you because as a Maple Leafs fan, I have certain feelings about your Stanley Cup run. And then obviously
or a Blue Jays hat, not a Leafs hat.
Well, I don't have a Blue Jays hat, but I figure this would represent close enough. And the other one with, signing with the San Jose Sharks, which at that time I think was still an early, 4, 5, 6 years into their NHL expansion. Now, going back to that quadruple overtime game with the New York Islanders in 1987 in the Stanley Cups against the Capitals, you had 73 saves, which was an NHL record that stood for 33 years until this past summer. Columbus Blue Jackets goalie Jonas Korpisalo recorded 85 saves in a playoff game. What's going through your mind as you're enduring 7 periods of hockey?
Well, when you enter a game like that, you have no idea, how it's going to end and how odd that ending was. So I remember going into the game, and we were down in that series 3-1. We ended up tying it up 3-3, going to Landover, Washington to play the Capitals for Game 7. And odds weren't in our favor. We had 3 incredible hockey players out of our lineup because of injuries. So we were without Mike Bossy, without Dennis Potvin, and without Brent Sutter. And then Brian Trottier, another one of our legendary Hall of Fame players, he was playing the game with a separated left shoulder. So for us to even be in that situation was pretty remarkable. But as the game's going on, and now it's, second overtime, I had been in a double overtime game before, and you really start to feel the effects at that point. One overtime is taxing enough, but definitely once you get into 2, 3, 4 overtimes, it's so difficult mentally and physically. And I remember trying to focus. And after an intermission, this is when it really occurred to me that it's going to be the first 2 minutes of a period or the last 2 minutes, simply because the first 2 minutes you're not quite focused yet, and the last 2 minutes you're probably losing a little bit of focus. Now, analytics, Chris Snow, that works for the Calgary Flames, he sent me a text a few years ago. Statistically, it's actually been proven through analytics that it's the first 3 minutes and last 3 minutes. So I was off by a minute, but either way, it doesn't matter. But during that game, Andy Van Hellemond was the referee. He was a legendary guy, and I had a really great rapport with him. I was happy to see he and about 5 other guys, referees that I really admired, that I thought perfect for this environment. And as the game's going on, and I can't remember if it was late in the third overtime, but I know certainly in the fourth overtime period, Julian, they'd flash on the scoreboard something like, now this is now the 7th longest game in NHL history. This is now the 6th, or whatever the numbers were. Or this was the longest overtime game in 60 years, something like that. All these interesting little tidbits. And I remember there'd be a whistle in my end, and we'd look up at the scoreboard. There'd be Andy Van Hellemond standing beside me, and we'd look up and then kind of look at each other and chuckle. As the game wore on, surprisingly, you became more relaxed because, in a sense, I hate to say this, but once you're in quadruple or triple overtime, I don't think anybody's going to get blamed for the loss. The game's just going to end, and you hate to see a loser, but somebody's going to be a hero. And so it really took a lot of pressure off as the game went on.
Now, obviously, being from Edmonton, I'm sure it was always an experience when you got to play against your hometown team when you were with, either the Islanders or the Kings. And so, unfortunately, when you came up against Edmonton in the playoffs with the Kings, they seemed to have your number year after year. However, in the year you don't have to play Edmonton in the playoffs, you get to play Toronto in the conference finals, going to yet another Game 7. But before we get into Game 7, let's go back to Game 6. Game 6 with the famous non-call high stick. Wayne Gretzky clips Doug Gilmour, and somehow, some way, Carey Fraser, the one time he's not paying attention in a hockey game he's refereeing, somehow misses this call. Now, obviously, we don't have replay back then. We don't have all these different angles.
Yeah.
And so you can't really fault him for doing so. But I will say, as a Toronto fan, growing up, I may not have understood what I was seeing. I was only 5 at the time. But I was told, and it was made clear, that we did not like Wayne Gretzky because he clipped our captain and cost us. I think it was the last time we had made it that far and that close to the Stanley Cup Finals.
I think the next year you guys went to the conference finals as well against Vancouver.
Yeah, but I don't think we make it to 7. I don't think we came as close because I believe Toronto was in a good position to move forward, lose Game 6, obviously lose Game 7. You go up against the Montreal Canadiens. What is that like going to a Stanley Cup final and competing with the chance to bring home the ultimate prize?
Okay, so I want to go back to your comment about Edmonton. I always found it nerve-wracking, Julian, to go back to my hometown to play. I didn't have much of a problem playing Edmonton, whether I was on Long Island, in LA, or in San Jose. But my gosh, I was so nervous always going back to Edmonton in my hometown because I didn't want to embarrass my family. My family, I'd get tickets for them and stuff. And it's surprising. It's the oddest thing. So when you're a kid growing up and your mom and dad take you to the rink for your minor hockey league games, I had no nervousness for that. Like I wasn't afraid of embarrassing my mom and dad, but all of a sudden I get to the NHL and I put all this pressure on myself that I don't want to make a fool of them. And so, man, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And but then going fast forward to what you're talking about, 93 playoffs, I always say this, and I'm not covering up for Carey Fraser or the two linesmen, but I was, 190 feet or 185 feet away from that play, and I didn't see it. And I know, there's different bodies and so on, maybe in my way, and oftentimes you can kind of tell if somebody gets clipped by a high stick, and I didn't really notice that at the time also. So, but here's what I really want to get at. Yeah, we got a break, but that happens. I lost some games myself by getting a bad break. And you got to get over it. And the Leafs had a chance. They had a chance to put their foot on our throat in Game 7 in Maple Leaf Gardens, and they didn't. So, in fairness, Wayne Gretzky, he says it's the best game he ever played. And I would say it's right up there. I saw some other pretty good games that he played too. So, but I think he means in the moment. I can't speak for him. But and then, to go to Montreal and, those two buildings, for me growing up in Edmonton, I always watched on a hockey night in Canada, the games coming from Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens or the Montreal Forum. And those as a young kid, they never left me. And so even when I played a regular season game in either Maple Leaf Gardens or the Forum, it was a special deal. It was a big, big deal. And including playing Game 7 versus the Leafs in Maple Leaf Gardens, you can't top that on a Saturday night. And we knew how unique and special that was. And trust me, that was, that helps motivate you. But then we beat Toronto, we go to Montreal. And once again, I just knew the importance of that building in my mind and what it had meant to me as a kid growing up. And so we go out for warm up before game one, come back in quite nervous. They're a nervous energy, anticipation, but not scared, just a good place to be. And I always remembered walking out towards the ice and leading the team out, and I stopped just before I was going to put my skates on the ice. And Julian, I looked around, and I looked around the Montreal Forum because I wanted to experience it all. I wanted to have that feeling I had as a kid. Like, you know, you always dream about playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, whether it's in Toronto or Montreal. And we had that good luxury. I also remember, and I want to make this also, it was also important for me always to get a glimpse of Jean Beliveau, because he was always in that building, and he and his wife sat in those same two seats, and he just seemed like hockey royalty to me, and looked so regal, beautiful, handsome man, and his hair, and he had the wonderful suits. And I always, every time I went to Montreal and played in the Forum, I always looked for Jean Beliveau. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about the playing the Canadian teams, Toronto, Montreal, and it sort of segues to the last thing I want to talk to you about, and the North Division. So this year, the NHL, due to COVID restrictions and travel, have decided to put together all the Canadian teams to come up with the North Division. So we're going to play games Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, all these teams that we play maybe once a year, but it could become a little bit more regular this year. What are your thoughts on this all-Canadian division, and do you think that this increases the chances that a Canadian team can bring home a Stanley Cup?
Well, first of all, I think that the Canadian teams are at that level. Like right now, I look at most of the teams, and I say, wow, we've got some really good competitive teams right now. And I look at the work that the general managers did for the most part across the board in this North Division. And most of the teams have done an unbelievable job of adding important players to their lineup. So it's going to be phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to it. And if I'm not mistaken, I should know this, but I think they play each other 9 or 10 times, right?
Yes.
And so that's going to be great. And just the competition and the rivalries that we're going to all experience as fans of the game, I think it's just going to be great. It's going to be so fun for all of us. It's going to be appointment viewing. You know, I think people will actually mark it on their calendar. You know, maybe I'm dating myself. Maybe people do that on their smartphone or tablet now. I still do actually carry a calendar in my travel bag, but that's separate. But I just think it's going to be incredible. And I look at some of the schedules, and I haven't looked maybe close enough yet, but I see some of the teams, they're playing a particular team like 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I know people might be offended by this word, but I'm going to like it because there's going to be a little bit of hatred in those games. And
for sure,
the hatred has really disappeared in a lot of sports, and in particular our game. And so for that reason, now that you're going to have those rivalries and all Canadian teams, I think it's just going to be great hockey.
I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be great especially for young fans who grow up loving Connor McDavid, but maybe live on the East Coast and they don't get to see him as much because they can't stay up to watch the, the 10:30 games on Hockey Night in Canada. So I think you're going to see a little bit more of that. I think you're going to see the love of the game truly build. And Canada for the longest time has been saying, this is our game. What would happen if we were just to play within Canada? And we're about to see it. We're about to see how it works, how it's marketed, what the fans are going to be like. I think Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, those rivalries are great. But now we get to see, Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton and really build on who can really say at the end of this year the best team in Canada is. You're going to have those bragging rights because you're going to play everybody. And you're going to have to duke it out and dogfight between all of those Canadian teams.
I like it too, just from a selfish standpoint for me, personal, that, I think we're going to have more eyes than ever on our broadcasts. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that challenge, right? Because, people, they are, fans are really crazy about their team and they don't mind letting you know it, and they express it on social media and stuff. So I think it's just going to be great that, a lot of people are going to be watching, and they're going to be, critiquing the games on the ice, and they're going to be wondering about what the broadcasters are going to say about their team, even though they might be cheering for somebody else, or however it works. It's just going to be really cool.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. It's one of the, again, positives that came out of this COVID-19 situation. A lot of things we can look back and say were challenging, but I think it's even better when you can look back and take in all the positives that have happened and taken place and say, you know what, we might get it for 1 year only, but hell, it's going to be a fun year, and we're going to watch and we're going to get our popcorn ready and enjoy, and hopefully don't have a Stanley Cup that ends sometime in August, because that was the only thing that felt a little weird. But hopefully, we'll get back on track and get to enjoy the game like we once did before all this craziness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all kind of expect that, first of all, the NHL and Gary Bettman and Bill Daly and the NHL Players Association did an incredible job handing out Stanley Cup to Tampa. Like, how they got through that bubble and everything in the 2 months, phenomenal. And so when the commissioner said that, okay, we're going to start here in January, I think all of us were like, okay, and now he can pull it off. He just does, right? And it sounds like he's pretty adamant that the following season will start as it normally would, training camps in September and back in October, regular season games. So I hope at some point we're going to be back to normalcy. And but going back to it, I just sense, we've been on some conference calls with some of the managers and some of the players. I get a sense here for the Canadian teams that the players are really excited about this chance to play exclusively other Canadian teams. And I think that's going to be really cool for us.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great experience. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being able to hear you on the call a little bit more than I would have normally, because 10:30 is a little bit past my bedtime to watch the Calgary Flames games. Right. But we're going to see you against Toronto. We're going to get to hear you on the alternate broadcast, which is going to be fantastic. Yeah. But Kelly, listen, I want to say thank you to you for your time today, for you, just talking it up with me. It was a lot of fun. Great to find out that you live so close to our old family friends. I'll have to, reach out and say, hey, listen, I know your neighbor now. I had a chat with him the other night on Zoom. But where can people find you on social media?
Okay, I'm on Twitter at just Kelly Hrudey, and on Instagram at Kelly_Hrudey. And please, if you want to tag me something, mention me, tag me in it. And if you want to have a mental health conversation or support something like that, please feel free. Because like I said earlier, if you're going through something, don't feel alone. And this is an important conversation for all of us to have. And by the way, if you do want to follow me on social media, expect in all likelihood, other than our conversations with mental health, you won't find anything important. You'll just see what I'm having for dinner. You might see my wife and I golfing in the summer. And in all likelihood, you're going to see a ton of pictures of our little grandson, Maverick, and our new grandson here in February.
Listen, congratulations again on the upcoming grandson. That is fantastic. For my guest, Kelly Hrudey, I'm your host, Julian Ortiz. Don't forget to click and the like button and subscribe. A new episode of the Big O Podcast is available every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for watching and listening, everyone.